I'm Jessie Lila, 31, and on the night of my sister's birthday, I thought I was just there to smile, clap, and play the part of the responsible daughter. The room sparkled with money, laughter, and the kind of arrogance my family wore like perfume. But then my mother handed me a folder with a $950,000 car bill inside and told me it was my gift to my sister. Everyone laughed. I didn't. I just signed. By morning, the laughter stopped. My mother's $1 million inheritance had vanished, leaving her account nearly empty and her pride in ruins. What followed turned our family's perfect image into a quiet battlefield where the is in my hand power. The laughter hit first, sharp, expensive laughter that echoed through the glass walls of our family's lakeside house. The kind of sound that made people glance over, not because it was joyful, but because it carried a certain arrogance. My sister, Lily, stood at the center of it all, wrapped in a pearl-white dress that shimmered like it had been designed specifically for attention. She looked perfect, of course. She always did. Her golden curls had been sculpted by the same stylist Mom had flown in from Los Angeles that morning, and the diamond earrings dangling from her ears flashed like spotlights every time she moved. I stood near the corner of the living room, fingers wrapped around a glass of sparkling water, watching as the crowd of guests hovered around Lily. Everyone wanted a piece of her moment. The new car was parked in the driveway, covered by a silk cloth that hid its gleaming shape. I already knew what it was, the limited edition Aurora L6, a car that cost more than most people's homes. And from the way my mother's smile stretched across her face, I could already feel the performance building. Mom loved her grand reveals. She loved control. And tonight, she had the stage perfectly set. Everyone, she called, her voice carrying with the same commanding tone that used to make me sit up straight as a child. Before we bring out the cake, there's one more surprise for my beautiful Lily. The crowd clapped, phones lifted in anticipation. I caught Lily's eyes, blue, wide, expectant, and then Mom's gaze flicked toward me. That was the moment I felt the air shift. She motioned for me to come closer, her manicured hand holding a slim folder wrapped in a gold ribbon. I stepped forward slowly, every movement deliberate, my expression calm. "Darling," she said, voice dripping with sweetness that didn't fool me for a second. "Since you've been doing so well at work, I thought it was time you contributed something meaningful to this family." A few polite laughs rippled through the guests. I could feel the heat rise in my chest, but kept my face neutral. Mom held out the folder like an offering. "You'll handle your sister's car payment. $950,000. Consider it your gift." There it was. The humiliation she'd planned, perfectly timed for her audience. The guests laughed again, unsure whether to take her seriously. Lily, twirling the silver car keys between her fingers, giggled as if the whole thing were some light-hearted joke. "Oh, come on, Mom, you can't be serious." But Mom's smile didn't falter. She loved that moment, the confusion, the power of having everyone's attention. "I'm absolutely serious. Family takes care of family." She looked at me, her voice lowering. "You've been blessed, Ava. It's time you showed a little gratitude." For a second, no one breathed. Then, without a word, I opened the folder. Inside, the paperwork was already prepared, every line filled in except for one, my signature. I could feel her watching me, waiting for me to argue, to refuse, to embarrass myself in front of everyone. But I didn't give her that satisfaction. Instead, I pulled a pen from my purse, signed my name in smooth, deliberate strokes, and closed the folder. "Done," I said quietly, placing it back into her hand. The crowd erupted into another round of laughter, thinking it was part of the show. Even Lily looked relieved, as if she'd dodged the awkwardness. "You're the best sister ever," she said, slipping her arm around me before darting off toward the window to admire her car through the glass. Mom looked triumphant. She patted my cheek lightly, a gesture that was more condescending than affectionate. "See, darling? When you stop resisting, life is easier." I smiled faintly. "You're right," I murmured. "Much easier." She didn't notice the flicker in my tone, she never did. As the night carried on, the party swelled with noise. Music, laughter, camera flashes. Everyone danced, toasted, celebrated the perfect family moment. But while they clinked glasses and admired the aurora outside, I slipped into the study upstairs. The lights from the lake shimmered against the glass wall, casting pale ripples across the desk where Mom kept her personal files. I'd been planning this for months. Every time she'd reminded me that I was nothing without her guidance, every time she'd used my success to inflate her own ego, I'd made note. The inheritance fund, her pride and security, sat untouched in a trust account my late father had created. And thanks to the legal adjustments she'd forced me to manage when she appointed me her financial proxy last year, I knew exactly how the accounts linked. So when I signed those papers tonight, I wasn't just accepting a bill. I was executing a transaction, one she'd never expect. The funds for the gift would indeed come from the account of the pair. Hers. Not mine. It was poetic, really. When I returned downstairs, the crowd had gathered around Lily as she unveiled the car. Cameras flashed, cheers erupted, and Mom looked like a queen in the center of her perfect kingdom. She didn't even notice me standing near the back door, my coat already in hand. The night air outside was cool, scented faintly with the lake breeze. I walked to my car, my modest sedan, parked far from the glittering collection of luxury vehicles. From the window, I could still hear them laughing. I smiled once. Just once. Then I drove away. The next morning, the first text came at 6:14 a.m. Mom, why is my account at $50,000? What happened to the trust fund? I stared at the screen, the morning light spilling across my apartment's kitchen counter. Steam curled from my coffee cup as I scrolled through the next messages. Mom, Ava, answer me right now. Mom, did you touch something? The bank says a transaction went through last night. Mom, what did you do? I let the phone buzz until it stopped vibrating. Then, calmly, I typed back. Me, I just followed your instructions, Mom. You said I should handle it. There was no reply for a full minute. Then 2. Then 10. I imagined her in that grand house by the lake, standing in her silk robe, face pale as she realized what she'd done, that the money she'd always flaunted as power had been drained by her own arrogance. Mom's call came before sunrise. Her voice cracked through the phone like static, sharp, breathless, desperate. Ava, tell me this isn't real, she demanded. You didn't actually transfer the money from my inheritance account, did you? Please tell me this is a mistake. I stayed quiet for a moment, watching the city outside my apartment window. The early light filtered through the blinds, painting thin lines across my kitchen counter. I could almost picture her pacing that marble floor, the silk robe wrapped tightly around her, the perfect composure she prized slipping by the second. It's not a mistake, I said evenly. You told me to handle the payment. So I did. There was silence, then a brittle laugh. You're joking. You can't just touch that account. That money isn't yours to move, Ava. That's true, I replied, setting my mug down. But I'm your financial proxy. You gave me access to manage your trust when you wanted to avoid tax audits. You said you trusted me completely. The sound of her breath caught. I knew she was realizing how easily she'd handed me the key to her kingdom. Ava, undo it, she hissed. Call the bank. I want that money back in my account within the hour. That's not how transfers work, I said, my tone calm, detached. You signed off on the authority months ago. The car company already processed the payment overnight. It's done. She muttered something under her breath, low enough that I couldn't make it out. Then the fury hit. You ungrateful child. Do you have any idea what you've done? That was my safety. That was your father's legacy. I closed my eyes briefly, letting her words wash over me. Dad's legacy, I repeated quietly. Funny. I don't remember him wanting it used to humiliate his daughter in front of a room full of strangers. Before she could reply, I ended the call. The phone buzzed again seconds later, but I didn't answer. By noon, the story had spread through the family like smoke. My aunt called to ask if I'd really bankrupted Mom. My cousin texted, half concerned, half entertained. Even Lily reached out, her message short and cautious. Lily, Mom's losing it. What did you do exactly? I didn't reply immediately. I wanted her to sit with that question. When she finally called, her voice carried that mix of confusion and guilt she tried so hard to hide. Ava, she's saying you stole from her. Is that true? No, I said. I didn't steal anything. I paid for your car. Just like Mom asked. She was quiet for a long moment. You knew she didn't mean it literally, she said softly. She should have been more careful with her words, I replied. There was a small exhale on the other end, almost a sigh. Ava, she's terrified. She called her lawyer. She says she's going to sue you. She won't, I said. That would mean admitting she gave me access to her inheritance and let me manage her finances without oversight. She'd rather burn down the house than let anyone know she made that mistake. Lily didn't argue. She knew I was right. For all her wealth and pride, Mom's greatest weakness was appearances. Losing control wasn't just a financial hit, it was humiliation. When the call ended, I sat for a while, the room still except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. My reflection in the window looked different, calmer, sharper. I wasn't the quiet daughter anymore, the one expected to absorb every insult and smile through it. Later that afternoon, I got an email from the family lawyer, Mr. Bryant. His message was brief. Subject: urgent discussion regarding trust fund transactions. He requested a meeting. I agreed. When I arrived at his downtown office, he was already waiting, his suit perfectly pressed, his expression unreadable. He gestured for me to sit. Your mother is upset, he began. She claims there's been an unauthorized withdrawal from her inheritance account. There wasn't, I said. She authorized me as trustee proxy. The transaction was legitimate. He leaned back slightly, studying me. Technically, yes. But she insists she didn't intend for you to use those funds for personal purchases. It wasn't personal, I said. It was a family gift. He blinked, then gave a slow nod, realizing what I meant. You mean? She told me to handle my sister's car payment, I said. I did exactly that. I didn't add or remove anything that wasn't part of her instruction. The money came from her account because that's where the payment authorization was linked. It's all documented. Bryant exhaled through his nose, looking more weary than surprised. You know, your mother built this image of being untouchable. She's not used to being outmaneuvered. I noticed, I said quietly. He gave a faint smile, the kind that carried both respect and caution. She'll recover, financially speaking. But emotionally, well, she'll take this as betrayal. She's mistaken, I said, standing. It's not betrayal. It's balance. That evening, I drove past the lake house. The lights were off except for one in the study. Mom's figure moved behind the glass, pacing. Lily's new car sat in the driveway, untouched, its pristine paint glinting beneath the porch light. I parked across the street for a moment, just watching. The silence around that house was unfamiliar. Usually, it buzzed with conversation, music, the constant sound of people trying too hard to prove something. Now, it looked hollow. My phone buzzed again, another message from Mom. Mom, you think this makes you powerful? You'll regret embarrassing this family. I typed back one sentence. Me, you embarrassed yourself, Mom. I just signed where you told me to. After sending it, I turned off my phone and started the engine. The road back into the city stretched out in front of me, dark and clean, the sound of the tires breaking the stillness. The next week unfolded like an old-wound reopening in slow motion. Reporters lingered near the house gate after someone leaked that Mom's trust account had been drained. The story hit the financial gossip blogs, socialites fund mismanaged by daughter. She tried to spin it as identity theft, but the bank records were too clean, too authorized. Every signature, every login, every timestamp traced back to her own approval. By the time she realized she couldn't bury it, the damage was already public. I didn't hide. I went to work as usual, keeping my head down while whispers floated around the office. People loved a scandal, especially one that smelled of family betrayal and money. Still, I didn't flinch. The truth was simple. She had drawn her own line and dared me to cross it. I just chose to walk right over it. 3 days later, she showed up at my apartment. No call, no warning. Just a knock that rattled the door like a storm demanding entry. When I opened it, she stood there in a tailored coat, sunglasses hiding eyes that had probably gone sleepless. Behind her calm expression, I could sense the fury boiling underneath. We need to talk, she said, stepping inside without waiting for permission. I gestured toward the small dining table. Go ahead. She sat, removing her glasses, her voice low but controlled. I spoke to my lawyers. They said legally, I can't reverse the payment. You made sure of that. I said nothing. She leaned forward. You humiliated me, Ava. Publicly. You think I deserve that? You made me sign a six-figure bill in front of everyone, I said quietly. You turned me into a joke. That was supposed to be a lesson, she shot back. To teach you humility. I met her eyes. And this was my lesson for you, to remind you what happens when you mistake control for love. Her jaw tightened. You think you've won something? No, I said. I just stopped losing. For a long time, she didn't speak. The silence between us stretched thin. Then, to my surprise, her tone shifted. Softer. Almost human. You've always resented me, she said. Since your father died, you've blamed me for everything. But you have no idea how hard it is to keep this family together. I did what I had to. I looked at her, the polished woman who'd built her world around appearances, terrified of cracks showing through. You didn't keep us together, I said. You kept us obedient. She flinched, as if the word itself wounded her pride. Then she stood, adjusting her coat. You'll regret this, she said, voice tight again. You think you've freed yourself, but without me, you'll have nothing. As she turned to leave, I stopped her. Mom, you've been wrong about me my entire life. I don't need everything, I just needed enough. She paused at the door, her reflection caught in the hallway mirror. For a moment, her shoulders sagged, and I saw the truth behind the arrogance, a woman terrified of becoming irrelevant. But she didn't respond. She just left. The door clicked shut, and with it, years of control finally ended. 2 months passed. The media noise died down once a new scandal took over. Lily moved out of the lake house after Mom sold it to cover property taxes. She called one evening, her voice uncertain but genuine. I didn't know how bad it was between you two, she said. I should have said something. It's fine, I told her. You got caught in the middle. That wasn't your fault. I sold the car, she admitted. Used part of it to pay Mom's debts. The rest, I put in your name. I figured it was fair. For a moment, I didn't know what to say. Lily had always been protected, shielded from the cracks that ran through our family. But this sounded like something different, the start of accountability. Thank you, I said. Just promise me you won't disappear, she said softly. Mom might never admit it, but she's scared. She's not used to losing control. I know, I replied. But maybe losing control is the only way she'll learn what freedom feels like. When the call ended, I sat in the quiet of my apartment, looking out over the city lights. For years, that silence had felt heavy, now it felt like peace. Weeks later, an envelope arrived. No return address, just my name printed in familiar handwriting. Inside was a short note. Ava, I've spoken with Bryant. The trust will remain in your oversight. Do what you want with it. Maybe you'll manage it better than I did. Mom. Beneath the note was a single photo, the three of us, taken years ago on the dock behind the lake house. Dad was laughing, his arm around both of us. Mom's smile looked real then. I stared at it for a long time before setting it aside. That night, I drove back to the lake one last time. The house stood empty, its windows dark, the for sale sign leaning slightly in the wind. I walked down to the water, where the surface reflected the sky like a mirror. For the first time, I didn't feel small standing there. The world hadn't changed, but I had.